Hello, everyone. Welcome to Malevolent Autopsy. If you're new here, welcome. This is a show hosted by patrons featuring patron content as Malevolent is in its fifth season, updating live. This show is chock full of spoilers since every episode is meant to comment on a live update. So if you want to avoid spoilers for all of Malevolent as it's been released to chapter 221, I would check out now and you can come back later. Our episodes are recorded live, so you can always listen whenever you want. They are in the pinned message on this channel. I'm Queen, and this week I am in control of Arthur's. We're gonna go with left kneecap.
The kneecap. I am Peppers. My pronouns are she, her, and I am controlling his nose. I'm controlling Arthur's nose today.
That's a pretty vital part. That's a lot of responsibility,
Yeah,
Peppers.
I know, and it must be itchy because I'm controlling his sniffer, and that damn mustache is right beneath.
Damn mustache. There's so much speculation on whether that's become a full beard now, or like how I've seen people trying to estimate how quickly Arthur's facial hair is capable of growing in based on his time in the pits and the description of his mustache. And it's been I've seen people doing science about this.
If I recall correctly, Harlan did also do a stream where he drew Canon Arthur. And he did say that he probably has a beard, so
I had no idea. I guess I missed the Harlan stream lore.
I think it was like 2 spooky streams ago,
Oh, that's
where
funny.
he was able to control a little pen because he was a kid in the game, and he drew on the walls, and he drew Canon, Arthur, and John.
I'm so excited. I have to go look at that stream. Okay, so why don't you give us our chapter recap, Peppers?
Here we go. It is late. Arthur pauses to drink from the river, but the water is foul, suggesting that something has died upstream. While they sit there, Arthur reminisces about being unable to see the forest and, in larger scope, England. He says that England feels closer to home for him. John ponders on if he considers the Dreamlands his home, or if he even has any sentimentality over it. They also speculate on what happened to Yellow, Larson, or Noel. And lastly, they speculate on why Cain never came to assist them when Arthur died. They kind of reach the conclusion that this area/timeline might be a blind spot, but that's also called into question because Cain was able to bring them there. They don't know yet. John notices broken baskets in the river meant to catch fish. Arthur realizes that there must be a civilization nearby. During this moment, he hesitates, showing that he still has some latent fear from the hag. Now a little nervous to meet people and unwilling to, I wouldn't say unwilling, but just nervous to experience even more dangers. John goes to reassure him, and when Yorick excitedly speculates that it may be a full village, Arthur bags him. They enter what looks like a small village with 4 buildings and a large fire and twisted tree in the middle. It is abandoned with items strewn about. There are no people to be seen. It is unclear whether it's been abandoned only for a short period, the occupants on, for example, a hunting trip, or if it's been totally abandoned long term. Night falls. Arthur and John must decide if they sleep in this abandoned village or leave it and return to camp in the forest.
That was beautiful. Every chapter recap that you do is poetry, Peppers.
Oh, I'm glad to be able to use my degree somehow.
What is your degree in again? Remind me.
It is English with emphasis on professional writing. I just say professional writing.
See, I remembered that, but I wanted you to have the chance to like say your degree out loud because I think
Oh, yeah.
I think that's always really nice because, it costs so much damn money.
Oh yeah. I mean, I sure as heck haven't used my what is it, like 70,000 degree slip of paper at my job, so might as well use it now.
Yeah, crazy, wild. Did I wonder if Arthur has a like a degree in something specific?
I know he went to university, so I'm assuming he had a degree. He strikes me as an art major, so
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
yeah, I fully think that he got his degree in like music or whatever, and he's like, "Oh,
I'm gonna
I'm gonna
major. Yeah, I
yeah."
feel like Arthur is definitely the type to have majored in art of some kind and have to face
Mhm.
that whole you're never gonna be anything. What is that degree gonna do vibe?
Yeah. Yeah.
But probably made a little bit easier for him given that he was, well, I guess we're assuming a white dude in that time period.
Yeah.
Probably had a little bit of an easier time dealing with that. So, what did you think about the chapter?
I enjoyed it. I had some fun. I always enjoy having these little discussions between Arthur and John, especially going over, their current thoughts on what's happening at the moment. I did really like the acknowledgement of Arthur's hesitation, definitely showing that very natural, he's not necessarily going with this kind of a lack of any self-preservation. At least he's very much not excited with the prospect of having to go through something like the hag again. I found that very interesting. I found it very interesting. I mean, yeah, it's only been 3 days since the hag killed him to death. So of course that's going to impact your I guess psyche. So it was kind of fun to have that discussion. I also really enjoyed John's kind of thought process on if he still considers the Dreamlands his home. There was a part of me, I guess because I've been reading a lot of fan fiction lately, I was waiting for him to be like, "You're my home, Arthur," and then for the collective audience to be like, "Oh," but that didn't happen.
In our dreams, it can. Yeah, I feel like this was a very needed chapter for me. There's been a lot of action. There's been a lot of things going on and kind of a nonstop feet on the ground, barrel ahead vibe. And that's great. And I really like it. And I'm excited to be making progress. However, I feel like sometimes in Malevolent I can get a little bit lost with the pacing of the show. I think that is one of the things that I personally, my brain struggles to keep up with. Sometimes I lose track of time in my real life. So, in a fictional world, fat chance that I will remember how long anything has happened. For me, the Gug was yesterday and Arthur died 2 years ago. So, nothing makes sense, which is why I really like these episodes where they don't like go back over ground they've already tread, but they definitely pause to sort of assess the situation as it is and have conversations that end up revealing things. I do really like Arthur's logic. I don't want people to see me carrying a rotting skull. It may send the wrong impression. I'm sure you understand. And then Yorick's little muffled, of course. That was hysterical. I also loved that John was so relieved that Yorick was being silenced. Silenced
Yeah,
poor Yorick.
they bagged him, and I find that
Yes,
very funny.
bagged him like a Subway sandwich. Make that skull into a number five combo with chips and a drink. I was very pleased about that, especially because I want to make sure, like, I'm glad the narrative did give us confirmation that there is going to be a way to shut Yorick up for a little bit when we need to, because I'm sure that will get in the way at some point. I'm sure that people are going to, be talking to the boys and then Yorick opening his damn mouth, clack, clack, clack. It's going to get him in trouble.
Yeah, Rowan added in chat. I keep forgetting the very real possibility they can accuse Arthur of witchcraft.
Yeah. And that's assuming that witchcraft isn't the norm here. Like we really don't know if that is something that is more common. I mean, we know that the hag has, those weird bug things up on the surface. So clearly people are used to seeing magic, because there's no way people haven't seen those or seen the effects of those. I think it's pretty safe to assume that magic has been kind of confirmed to be real here to the people who probably occupy this place. Whether or not they see it as an inherently good or bad thing, I don't know. And I don't know if I'm eager to find out, which means that Arthur's got to keep kind of low profile, and being from this time period, I don't know how easy that's going to be for him.
Yeah. If Fish mentions, I don't think we're going to come across any normie villagers, quote unquote. There is a part of me, I think, because I love me some Witcher 3 and some Dragon Age and some Skyrim. There is a part of me that's like, man, I want him to go to a tavern and sleep. That's all I want. I want him to go to a tavern and sleep and talk to normal people. Because he did, technically, yeah, he went to an inn in season 3, but there were fucking weird people in there who played, personally for me, banger song. Absolute banger. However, everything else after that went a little cuckoo.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I miss Arthur talking to regular people and having regular interactions, and kind of being an investigator in the more traditional sense, where he gets to gather clues by talking to people who have information that he's able to get from them. I do miss that. At the same time, I feel like at least a couple of times we got that kind of arc moment in Malevolent. I wish we had gotten it a little bit more. I wonder if this is going to be more espionage than actually talking to people, but at the same time, like, I don't know. I feel like with this season being so different from everything else we've done in Malevolent, it's really hard for me to anticipate what the next step is going to be. I mean, I think Fish is right. We're probably not going to encounter any normal people at this juncture. I would hope that we get some kind of normal comparison. I think the weird becomes more mundane if you don't have the mundane to compare it to. So I definitely think there's going to have to be some kind of a shopkeeper or something that we're going to have to talk to get a read on what is normal here. What is the base person here?
Yeah. And Fish also mentions in chat, we already miss Arthur talking to normal people, when I would argue that there's very little of Arthur talking to regular mundane human beings across the entire show. Which is fair, which is entirely fair. We were very spoiled with season 4. I'm not necessarily suggesting that he meet. Okay, yeah, I did suggest that. he meet normal people at a tavern. Quite frankly, all I want is for him to sleep under a quilt. That's all I want.
Except that doesn't make for an entertaining podcast.
Queen, I am in your walls. I can ask for what I want, and
Look,
I can
Peppers,
throw a fit about it.
Peppers, even I could go and find, honest, in a sound bank somewhere, sound of malnourished man slightly snoring 24-hour version, set it to some nice like background tavern music, and that can be your little episode where Arthur gets to sleep. But like, this is not, I mean, we know that the reason we don't are you laughing at the fact that I said any of those words, because they're all accurate and correct?
Well, it's just the fact that you had to add in the slightly malnourished. He is incredibly malnourished.
I've tried
man.
to be gentle. He on top of everything else Arthur has experienced, the last thing I want is to insult him even further by saying it outright, like, dude, eat a burger. That's yeah, he doesn't need to be told over and over again how malnourished he is. He knows. So I'm trying to be gentle and delicate. He's been through a lot, Peppers. I don't know if you know this, but he has lost quite a few people. Everybody that Arthur meets and loves dies. So I don't know if you've heard about that.
No, I haven't been drawing any of it, so don't worry.
Yeah, okay. Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I was just gonna say, we're notorious for saying things like we don't use the items a whole lot, we don't read the books a whole lot, we don't, there's a lot of conversation about why we don't take certain actions in Malevolent, and it does come down to the fact that, yeah, I mean, for a lot of people, probably, namely the creator who's making something that he would want to listen to, doesn't like to hear people just reading a book or sleeping or walking for 20 minutes in silence. I mean,
yeah, it would be
silence.
boring. I think ultimately Yeah, there's a part of me that's like, oh, I'd love for him to honk shoe, and I'd love for him to have like a normal conversation with somebody. But at the end of the day, this is a horror podcast, and it would also be incredibly fucking boring. Um, so I'm with you in that regards. It's just there is another small piece in my mind of, hey besties, to the writers out there, because my ass doesn't want to do it. I might have a degree in writing, but it certainly isn't creative writing. So I'm asking you guys to please, to please just indulge in that for me specifically, not for yourself, but for me.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. And I mean, Graham says, "See, I would listen to an episode that was just an hour of Arthur reading out lore." And I am very much on the side of the fact that I have heard Harlan in Q&As and commentaries and all kinds of stuff say, who's going to listen to that? Nobody would listen to that. It's boring. It's just two people talking to each other. And every time, almost every time he himself comments on this, I say to myself, don't tell me what I like and don't like. Sir, I would listen to Arthur read the phone book. I genuinely, I think there is an audience for everything. It just means that what I take from it is the fact that Harlan is making something he would want to hear, and typically he probably doesn't enjoy listening to the same thing I want to listen to. I mean, legitimately, my favorite parts of the podcast are when two people are just talking to each other and having heart-to-heart conversations. But if that was all it ever was, that might dissatisfy some people. It might extremely please others. Me, it would be me. It would be me that it was pleasing. And I respect that. I understand that. I'm glad. I wouldn't want anyone to put something in their own creation just because other people wanted to see it. Because I think it's important to like what you make. I think it's important to be your own audience to a degree. Like when you read back over what you write, it would be nice if you could think, like, thank God somebody wrote this because I wanted this to exist. And I think it's so nice to see a creator that actually sticks to that. And I know that because I know that pressure can get to a lot of artists and creatives, and I'm not suggesting that anyone thinks Harlan should add Arthur sleeping into the podcast seriously, but I
Well,
just
yeah, sure, you, but you're only one half the podcast.
that's true.
So,
That's fair. I don't represent both of us. Just me.
well, and I will say, Harlan has also shown what he knows a story needs rather than, let's say what a less experienced audience member might desire. He knows what a story needs, what conversations need to happen, what pacing needs to be, put in, if he should stick a monster in it because he can sense that, the story is starting to flag and get boring. So, I definitely, after now 5 seasons, well, 4 full seasons, and now we're in our 5th season, Harlan has proven to be a competent writer, to understand, at least for me personally, what the story needs emotionally, and to just keep our attention. So far, I've been really massively enjoying season 5. It has almost hit. It has almost gone over the tier list. Season 3 is my absolute all-time favorite. But this is very quickly. We're only now 4 episodes in. We're on our 4th right now, and I'm actually we're on our 5th, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're on our fifth episode. So, and season 3 was pretty short. Season 3 was 8 episodes, if I recall correctly. So, I mean, I still feel like we're still in the midst of kind of the beginning of season 5. So I'm ready. I'm ready for it to jump up the tier list.
Yeah, I think everyone's really excited for what's coming up. I will just go ahead and make sure to read Fish's joke out loud, because I think he would jump out of the sea and smack me in the face if I didn't. He says, we got Arthur sleeping episode. It's called 43. And the joke is, if anyone missed it, Arthur died. So, technically kind of sleep, like a sort of big sleep, a long forever sleep. Anyway, so let's talk about the thing I'm actually super excited about, which is the vote. This week we get to decide whether they stay in the village or stay outside the village. That is the actual wording of the vote, which is so intentionally vague. It's hilarious to me. It is, I have selected because nobody had real input this week. I selected a farmer emoji for stay in the village because they called it a homestead. And by the way, a homestead is a big plot of land. It is not an actual building. Stay outside the village, got a circus tent because frankly that was the only emoji I had access to in Canva that was tent like, and that's what I went with. So circus tent it is. Right now, we are trying to, some of us are trying to campaign for a vote flip. There's only 10 other people aside from me and Peppers in this recording right now, so I doubt that's going to be the 10 we need to flip it. But if you're listening to this, yeah, we are trying really hard to get him to stay outside the village. We're trying our best. I think we can still do it. I think there's still time, but we really got to be working hard overtime because we already have over 280 votes out of a possible 328 at the last time we got a full number of votes was 328 was our max. So, almost everybody's voted. There are some people who do wait until the last minute to vote. So there's still hope there. And I do believe we can change some minds. But Peppers, why don't you explain to me why you're wrong?
So I was so excited to get this because when it came out, Queen immediately said, I cannot wait to fight people who want to stay in the village. And I was like, oh, yes, this is going to be such a juicy autopsy episode. And I have points. I have points to be made. I even put it in slow poll chat.
I know. I was so excited to see you actually in my turf.
Yeah, I'm not in there very often. I kind of just, for those of you who are not aware, I am very quiet usually in poll discussion just because contrary to popular belief, I don't like confrontation.
And she says on a podcast primarily centered around confrontation.
Okay, well, it's fun when it's just you and me because I can scream at you really loud.
That's fair.
Whereas nobody else, when it's in text form, other people can shout at me just as loud, and then
fair.
I get sad and start crying.
Yeah.
So this sates me, and so I'm voting for staying in the spooky village. There's quite a few reasons. Number one, returning to the river is what I consider to be backtracking, and Malevolent is known for bad things happening if you backtrack. And there's at least obvious signs that the river poses a more immediate danger to, number one, openness, not as much shelter, and also there's a fucking dead thing upstream. Additionally, I just find the spooky village to be a lot more interesting plot beat. I would prefer what's up with it. What's going on? I don't want to leave that plot point. So I want to stay in the spooky village.
Okay. Yeah. Well, those were some words and said in an order. I would
tell me what you're wrong.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem. I think you meant right, but I'll let that go. So stay outside the village. So primarily my reason is heavily reliant on lessons learned, which is, I mean, personally, I've seen us take a lesson we've just been taught literally 5 seconds ago and completely throw it out the window. So I'm trying to keep in mind what we have been taught in the last few episodes, which is maybe don't trespass and maybe don't steal. And that's kind of exactly what we're doing right now if we decide to stay in the village. We know that Arthur is not willing to stay inside one of the buildings, so we don't get the benefit of like actual shelter. I think what we would get the benefit of is, having the building surrounding us, maybe protecting us from some of the wind and maybe keeping out any kind of monster or predator that may be out there. Who knows? This is already a populated area. So that those are a couple of pros going for staying in the village. However, He is going to be fully exposed still outside. That's not going to change either way, regardless of whether or not they stay in the village. And they are going to build a fire either way. I don't think there's an option not to build a fire, because that is not something that is implied to be up to us. So really, we don't get to say whether or not they do any of those things. It's just up to us to decide if it's in the village or out the village. And frankly, if they're going to use someone else's firewood to build a fire, which is, firewood is not a, something that it just comes easy, probably. I would assume it's probably a fairly useful resource. I would like them to get their own damn firewood. I would like them to stay far away from other people's property and deal with it. I mean, they can't act like, I feel like Arthur is just acting like this is, he can just talk to people and they'll understand. If we're just honest, we can just explain to them that we're lost. Like that's not how things work anymore. I mean, it's just so clear to me that this is another case of Arthur forgetting that this world does not work the way he thinks it's going to work, even though they're out of the hag's lair. This is not New York. This is not modern times. And I'm really worried that this is another sign of, hey, we're going to waltz in here like we own the place, lay down, sleep in the open, not make any attempt to explain ourselves beforehand, because there's nobody around to explain. I also think that as much as it sounds like it's backtracking, it specifically says stay outside the village. It doesn't say we're going to go backwards. It doesn't say we're going to stay back by the river. I know John mentioned that. I know Arthur mentioned that. And I do know that there are dangers in that river. I am not one bit contesting that. I will say, if we're going to fight something, if we're going to get harassed or hurt in some way, I trust Arthur a little bit more in outsmarting a monster that potentially does not have the same level of human intelligence. I do not think Arthur would get out alive from a confrontation with, like, I don't know, a circle of mages or whatever people live here. I just don't, I think humans are going to outsmart, monsters every time. And I think it would be more likely that Arthur would survive an encounter with a beast rather than a person who lives in a home and feels protective and defensive of that home.
Okay, so I have a couple responses.
Okay.
Okay. Very first thing, they speculate in the episode that they maybe had gone on a hunting trip. A couple reasons why that wouldn't be the case. Number one, that's not how things work, especially when you live in a shelter and you have several houses. There's at least going to be one group that continues to do chores, continues to stake the fire, make sure it continues to run, because fire is like one of the largest commodities. You also make sure that nobody goes in to steal your shit, which I will agree. It's a good point. It's a great point that they will be using the firewood. However, it's firewood. Like, they can fucking chop down more trees. Also, I am assuming that these villagers have fled. And I have good reason for that. Number one, there's something dead at the river. And if it was game, they would not be leaving game up the river, because that's meat, that's food. So whatever is up the river and died means it stayed there and was abandoned, maybe because people were running for their damn lives upstream. Secondly, the thing that died in the river is the reason, this is what Evil Liz Zill says in chat. The thing that died in the river is the reason why I want Arthur to stay in the village. I have reason to believe that the village was fully abandoned. And it was not a planned decision. It was not a planned decision for the entire village to go on a hunting trip. That just doesn't happen. People.
But Peppers, we weren't given any description of like any ransacking or scrambled people dropping things. Like, we didn't get a description of any kind of like debris or signs that people left in a struggle, which seems like it would be a pretty notable thing to talk about. And the fact that these may not necessarily be normal living people. We could be talking about a haunted village where they're all ghosts. They don't need to actually have a physical presence. We're still trespassing.
if it's a haunted village, then there's no point. There's no point in all this stuff being there. There are still plenty of items there that are still being used.
You don't, I mean, look, I'm just saying it's possible that it could be a situation where there's some kind of supernatural being that is not fully human, probably not fully ghost. I don't think it's ever going to be as normal as just a regular ghost. But because ghosts don't have stat blocks, but like what I'm saying is the point I'm trying to make is I don't think it's a necessary that they function the same way you think a small village would function, especially because there are so few buildings. Didn't they say there were only like 3?
So there are technically 4, but the 4th building is, I believe, it was 3 walls, and then one of the walls is not there, and it's like a slab. I'm assuming it's used for like something like grinding or something like that.
Yeah, maybe
Like
grinding meat to break your bones or whatever that.
grinding meat. Then
Sorry.
you'd have to smell. You'd have to smell all the blood. There'd be
I meant
residue there,
I meant
but there
grinding bones.
isn't.
I
So
meant
therefore, it's probably grain.
I meant grinding bones to make your bread.
And if it was bones you could smell. Bones still have like the fucking meat inside the bones. I don't know. I'm not a fucking nurse.
It's
but
Jack.
I know
It's
that there's
from
stuff
Jack
in
and the
bones.
Beanstalk Peppers. I was making a side-off joke, Peppers. Don't. It's okay. I believe you.
And
The bones have a smell.
Additionally, the baskets have been abandoned by the village. The firewood has been left there. It's just as Rowan says in chat, it would be odd to leave resources behind as well. Therefore, they fled.
Okay.
It may not have been a violent struggle. I'm not suggesting that there was a violent struggle, but maybe they had to fucking get out of there.
What if, if I walk into a house and it's abandoned, what makes me go, oh, great place to spend the night? Like, why, if I think that people fled this house, I wouldn't stay there. I'd get the fuck out. That's classic horror movie shit.
Let me give you an additional thought process. Let me choose between the two: river with dead thing in it, or possible civilization where at least there's already fire there.
We're not told that they're going to stay by the river. The choice is stay in the village or stay outside the village.
Okay, but we then use context clues of that previous.
No.
Yeah.
No. Listen, just because they examined a river and found some baskets doesn't mean that we're gonna go right back there if we pick stay outside the village. There is no. Where did the logic come from for you for that? Where's the context clues?
Oh yeah, because he already suggests that we go back to the river. When you camp out to a location, you camp out near a water source. So it is just common logic that you would camp out near a river source. The question is, what would you prefer? Would you prefer to be in a forest where there's less shelter and there's not as an assured location where if something were to attack you, you're able to easily enter perhaps an already built structure that you could enter into so that the thing won't fucking get you, versus sleeping out in the open in a location that you've never been before? What's the smarter of the two is the question.
I just think that if somebody has abandoned the place where they live and feel comfortable enough to have buildings and have stayed there long enough to build like a little tiny society right there, and they left it all, why would I feel like that's the place to stay? What protects me there?
Because at least there's not something dead there. There's still no signs of a physical struggle. Versus the river, which is still considered outside. Yeah, sure.
Okay,
they
then why not? If there's no signs
of... Let me finish. You might not camp near the river, but it's still confirmed that outside there's still a kill count over there. Therefore, something is out there versus at least you have a couple areas to hide underneath, within, around, that at least it's a smarter decision to stay in that location.
What if
versus to go outside, even if it doesn't have to be near the river. It's just outside. There's something dead outside. So which do you prefer?
Okay, but in the same breath you're saying that okay, you don't think there was a sign of a struggle, so the reason they fled wasn't violent. But at the same time, there's something violent outside. If we hit an abandoned village and a river with dead shit in it, and you're like, well, it doesn't mean that they fled because they were scared or there was a problem with staying here. Let's just stay here, and because it's a place to stay. Like the reason that you wouldn't want to stay there is because it makes you a target. Whatever made these villagers flee, they left for a reason, and you don't know where they are right now. They could just literally be like 50 feet on the other side of us. We just don't know. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that staying there makes us more or less safe than not staying there. I just think that in general, we have learned that even though this place is maybe abandoned, we have no idea who was there before us, why they left, if they left willingly, if we just don't have any context, and it feels safer to not only stay outside the village, but maybe take advantage of the fact that we have the opportunity to make that decision now. And what if we keep the village in our line of sight? What if we get the drop on these people as they're coming back to their village? Now, granted, I don't think that's going to happen either, because John does say it looks like it's been abandoned for a while. We don't know what a while means. Could that be sun up to sundown? Could it be a few days, years? He's not that fucking descriptive in this episode. All of a sudden, John can't remember how to say enough words, even though he wouldn't shut up. Like the whole season 1, he was like, let me describe the horrors to you as you're being chased, Arthur. And now he like can't tell me if there's like dust and cobwebs. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm a little mad at John for not being more descriptive right now. Anyway, my point is, I just think that if there's something out there that made these villagers, whoever lives here, abandon the area, if we repopulate it, that could be putting a target on our back. Whatever's out there might literally be watching this area for those things to come back. We don't know that. And
also, whatever's out there is already there. They are out. It's out there because something's fucking dead in the river.
Look, okay. Let me also point out that Arthur saying it tastes like something died in the river. Yeah, I'm sure that's accurate. I'm sure something did die in the river. But listen, that doesn't really surprise me given the fact that we are in ancient times, like ancient times, and like they did a lot of stuff to their water that we would not do today to make it taste like dead people. So granted, like that could also be a squirrel dying in the river. Like we literally do not know. So I don't know.
Because squirrels do a dead carcass of a squirrel does not cause an entire river to be contaminated.
Peppers, a family of squirrels. Fine, you want to kill a family of squirrels, Peppers?
Also the fact that there were fish baskets over there. They're already being used, but now the fish baskets have been destroyed also implies that something has been fucking up with the fish baskets. So there's more evidence, more physical evidence, tangible evidence in the episode that outside, it's already outside. So if we want to find shelter for me is the smarter of the option, and also just a reminder, more fun, more interesting.
Oh,
what the fuck is up with this?
No, I'm gonna ban this argument from the fucking podcast. I hate it's more interesting argument. I hate it. It's so subjective. It's not. You can't yes or no toggle an interesting option. I think the river would be more interesting. How about that? You can't say I'm wrong because it's my opinion.
objectively speaking, there's more things to investigate. We've already investigated the river. The only thing different is we'd have to go outside, which, by the way, it's already getting dark. And so you're already taking a risk by going outside. They're going to have to take time to start chopping down some trees or gather some kindling. And it's already getting dark. And John has already confirmed that it's difficult to already see. So the fact that there's already a fire already there, they just need to toss some firewood in it. Yeah, okay. It's firewood. Firewood you're able to replenish. It's better just for Arthur's safety for him to remain in that area.
With hold on. No. Hold on.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that you think Arthur, size of a twig Lester, is out here chopping trees? Do you think that that's what they've been doing for campfires? Do you think that Arthur is chopping trees?
Gathering kindling. Okay, let's fine. I reform my argument of he is gathering kindling. Well, gathering kindling still takes time. It's already dark outside. There is a whole hunk of firewood already there to be used. Yeah, okay, the villagers might be pissed that that he used their firewood. He's also wearing the prince's armor. So he could just be like, I'm the prince. And then they're like, oh damn, well I'm embarrassed, Mr. Prince.
For sure, that's what the prince looks like. Yeah, that one. That guy. Definitely a prince.
They don't have confirmation. They don't have fucking photos there.
Peppers.
But what they do have is regalia, and regalia they're able to use.
Peppers. Let me just tell you something right now. If you are so fixated on this firewood already being there, already being prepped, you know they're fully capable of, like, scooping some up, tucking it under their arm, and leaving. Like, they can fully take the firewood with them. It's portable, Peppers. They can take the stupid pre-prepared firewood if you're really excited about that, which I think is a bad idea.
Assumptions.
What if the firewood's cursed?
It's just an assumption that they'll just take the firewood, but that's not any confirmation that they ever would do that. In the actual poll option, the only poll option is to stay there or to leave. And I really don't think the leave option, Arthur would be like, oh, by the way, it's a really smart idea for me to grab all this firewood. I don't think he's going to do that.
Well, okay, let's not be hasty here. We have not just one mind, but 3 minds now. One of them might suggest that they take the firewood. If Arthur's not smart enough, I'm sure John or Yorick will pick up the extra brain cell and juggle it for him for a minute. My point is specifically that if you're talking about preparedness and running out of light when it comes to staying in the village versus staying outside the village, I do not think that light and time are going to play a significant role in getting out of here and being safe. I think the other side of it is that if it is, it's a decision between, do you want enough time to stay in the light, or do you want to stay here and take some other completely unknown, potentially more dangerous risk? Like, I would rather them, they've navigated the dark and they've had all kinds of experiences being through treacherous, like, forest type environments before. They know that territory. You know what they don't know? Abandoned villages with potentially cursed firewood and who knows what else out there, potentially even already having a lake. Look, you're making a lot of assumptions too. I don't want to hear it. Like, if you're allowed to start talking about, oh, the light, and they need to already have all the time on their hands. What are they gonna do other than lighting the fire? What are they gonna do while the light is still up? What would you like them to do, Peppers?
Well, the light is already dying. By the time that they've already exited the village and located a new location to, build their camp, by that time it's already dark. And so now they have to wander around in the dark, already one hand incapacitated because it has to hold up the light in order to gather kindling. Why not use what they already have immediately right there?
Because it's not fucking theirs. Because it's not theirs and we just got our ass kicked for picking up a talisman that wasn't ours?
Firewood is so much different than a talisman, however, and there's already signs that these villagers might be fucking dead. Because, once again, there's stuff up the river. There's stuff up the river that's already dead. It is an implication that, and it is a logical assumption to reach that there's something already dead up the river.
Okay, yes. Let's go with that. There is something dead in the up the river. Something died. It was a river adjacent thing cause. We don't know if something killed it. We don't know if it drowned. We have no idea. But something died in the river. Okay, there is something dangerous somewhere here in the vicinity. Okay, we're in agreement on that. I can also agree with you that the light is dying because that is just an objective fact. I do not think our protagonists are stupid enough to be like, the light is dying. I'm going to take another 30 Christian minutes to figure out where to camp. Like, if the light is dying, they're going to know when they need to stop. They're going to know when they need to figure out, oh, we should be picking up twigs and sticks along the way. We should be foraging for firewood along the way. Like, let's give them a little bit more credit, a little more survivalist instinct on their side. Okay, these are the people who were able to navigate out of this hag's lair pretty much by themselves. And I guess for me, there's no reason to invade another person's property when we've just learned that we shouldn't do that. On top of the fact that we don't know that whatever is dangerous out here, because there is something dangerous out here, I totally agree with you. We don't know that that thing has or does not have a lock on this location. And it seems so much more risky to me to pick a rooted down location to stay in, to be like, oh yeah, this is already handily prepared. Like, if I saw a full table setting out in the middle of the forest, I wouldn't go sit down and eat the food there because it's obviously a trap. Like, I don't know. There's just so many reasons to me why I wouldn't go stay in the convenient buildings placed in a suspicious circle.
Okay, I know that we only have 10 minutes left, but my final rebuttal, closing statements. Closing statements. Number one, it's already dark. Their decision of we need to make camp now has already been established by John. John saying we need to make camp now. So why not make camp? The camp has already been made for them. There is something already confirmed outside that has done damage, which is a combination of something dead up the river, which to me, just like the hag, down in the hag, there was an assumption that there was what was it? It was like a slab with like a hatchet in it. And we could either pick that door or we could pick a different door. Well, the door that had the spooky bloody hatchet was not the correct option. It was a very clear, obvious omen to not go to that door. I feel like the river with something dead in it is very similar to the thing that we should not go towards and the thing that we should potentially avoid. It's already getting dark. That's my final say. I want to point out that there are some really legitimate good points for staying outside the village in slow poll and in poll chat constantly being thrown around. I know that Fish has made some really good points. I'm not going to read them out or anything. But I do think that there is some lore connections that I don't really read or know anything about that connect the whole mythos stuff to some of the symbols and things that we're seeing here. There's talk of an evil tree or something like that. I'm only not giving credence to these because I haven't read them at full in myself. I don't want to endorse a theory that I really don't know very much about. I'm just excited to have smart people on my side. I'm usually not on that side. So I typically don't have any like really strong how do I say it, like in universe factoids to back up a lot of my poll decisions. This one specifically, I feel like on a very serious note, like I feel like staying outside the village, while it is still a risk and we really don't know enough about the situation to say that either one will protect us more, because that's why it's a vote. Nobody really knows the answer. The potential for Arthur to be able to see from an outside perspective what's going on, or potentially not be seen by, a creature or a person that is coming back to this area, I would really like that. I want Arthur to be able to observe something here in this universe without having to immediately interact with it. And I feel like staying in the village wouldn't give him that opportunity if it exists. It may not exist, but I think there's a better chance of that happening if we stay outside the village. I also think that in general, I feel more comfortable with the idea of it, like if you're comparing it to the hag with the hatchet outside her door. To me,
that would say like the river would be the hatchet and the door would be the village. So why would I enter the door? The river should have told me not to go in there in the first place. That's how I would have read it if I were trying to compare the two. I know that's not the point you were making, but that's how I, like, when you try to bring that one up, that's what I thought of.
Yeah.
I will say, as we wind down here, there have been some really good comments in the chat that we have not gotten to read because we've been yelling at each other. There are excellent points on both sides, as always. People are making fun of me because I said 30 Christian minutes. No offense to Christians.
It's very funny. No, I'm a Christian. I'll give you a pass. I don't know. Who cares?
I went to a Catholic school like pretty much my whole life. I'm not Catholic or Christian, or I'm not religious, but I will say no intents offended. It was a phrase I saw on the internet and it has gotten stuck in my lexicon. Apologies if it bothered anybody.
You said no intents offended.
I also said earlier, grind. Yeah, I said some things in this episode I am not proud of, but that's what happens when you get worked up about options in a story that you love. I think it's very exciting. I would keep an eye on poll chat and stuff. There are people in there who would really like to flip the vote. We are actually pretty close to being able to do that, I think. I'm going to do a quick refresh on the results right now and give kind of a live update. I think most of the people in chat are staying in the village. So right now it's 68% stay in the village, 32% stay outside the village. So that's as of 9:56.
And how many votes?
Total number of votes right now is 283.
Okay.
So we'll see. I mean, there's still time. We still have a good solid, day and a little extra. So get in there and campaign for your side. I want to see people in there arguing and having fun.
Yeah. And you'll see Queen there because I won't be.
Yeah, Peppers doesn't go in there, but I will be there and I will be helping yell. I will get in the comments. Yes, as Brennan Lee Mulligan says. That everybody, thank you so much for joining us. I really enjoy getting to spend this time with you, Peppers. To let everybody know, you're not mad at me, right? We're still friends.
We ham this up. But this is all lighthearted. Neither of us take this personally. This is we're both adults. We're both capable of having these kind of fun little debates that neither of us really, take personally. So, of course, I'm not mad at you, Queen.
Thank you, Peppers. I'm glad that we're still friends until the next vote. But this was a joy and a pleasure. I loved having everybody in chat. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with us. I love seeing people be active while we're yelling at each other. It's really fun.
Yeah, it's super fun. I really enjoy it. Yeah, sorry we didn't talk too much, read out too many of your guys' comments. We were really busy screaming at each other, and in fact, my throat is sore.
Yeah, my jaw is hurting. So I'm gonna get going, but it was great to chat with you, Peppers, and it was great hanging out with everybody.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We've had a bunch of fun.
We'll see you guys next, probably Friday. Same time, same place. Bye, everybody.
Yep, bye-bye.